uniform mushrooming gray cloud rapidly expand to envelop the building. As this was happening, one can see debris being blown away from the building with an extremely powerful blast. The overhanging upper section of the building was then mysteriously shrouded and was never seen again. Then the whole building came straight down. Within an incredibly fast 10.4 seconds, the once mighty 1,350-foot tower was reduced to a pile of totally pulverized remains. Government story is that this building experienced a compression or pancake demolition caused from weakened trusses and weight from above. At first, this explanation sounds plausible, especially because this is what the television reports have told us time and time again. However, common sense would indicate that the center of gravity of the top section was not centered over the lower section. Thus, if there was a compression demolition of the building, it would not be uniform because the center of gravity was considerably off-center. Secondly, the severed top section that was tilting very much over the edge would fall somewhat independently. Third, this section would fall at a faster rate than the anchored lower section because it would not meet the resistance of the intact lower section. Fourth, the top and lower sections would break into pieces. They would not pulverize. None of these four things happened. Point 30. The complete demolition of the North Tower at 10:29 a.m. took only 8.1 seconds. The North Tower came neatly down upon itself, and its remains were equally powdered. Point 31. Facts are very stubborn things. According to the law of falling bodies, as originally put forward by Galileo and still accepted today by all scientists, as described in the World Book Encyclopedia under falling bodies, law of, the total distance traveled at the end of any specific time in a total vacuum is calculated by this formula. Distance being d equals 32.16 divided by 2 times time in seconds squared. If there is any resistance, then the speed and time of the falling body slows down in relation to this resistance. In the case of the World Trade Center towers north and south, we know that the towers were 1,350 feet tall. Thus, you would have this equation for the fastest time of total drop in a vacuum. 1,350 equals 32.16 divided by 2 times time in seconds squared. This works out to 9.1627 seconds as the fastest time these buildings could come down. This presents some very interesting questions because the World Trade Center South Tower came down in 10.4 seconds, and the World Trade Center North Tower came down in 8.1 seconds. Additionally, there was resistance, and plenty of it. The resistance was the massive lower sections of the buildings that were stabilized by over 250 major interior and exterior steel columns and thousands of steel trusses. This defies the laws of gravity. Thus, either the height of the buildings is inaccurate, the time of the falls is inaccurate, the scientific calculation that has been used for hundreds of years is inaccurate, or something pulled down these buildings at a faster rate. Check it out for yourself. Point 32. Remember the gray cloud that concentrically blasted out and down the imploding buildings and chased thousands of New Yorkers down the streets while covering the whole area with a sand-like substance? What was that stuff? It was cement and other materials that had been crystallized. Could the blast of jet fuel create this crystallization? No, because at full blast, jet fuel only expands at 208 feet per second. Could a compression demolition do this? No. There is not enough latent energy. The cement would crack and break, but would not pulverize. The only way the molecular composition of these materials could be so scrambled is if there were small-scale nuclear devices or there were high-tech explosives. Since there are no unusual readings of radioactivity that can be confirmed, modern explosives are the logical choice. High-tech explosives, such as RTX or C4, can expand at over 1,000 feet per second and create extremely hot temperatures. Modern explosives could cause the crystallization of the building materials while creating a vacuum that could pull down the buildings at a faster rate than normal speed and leave a residue of extremely high temperatures. Point 33. FEMA put forward this hurried and very short explanation concerning the collapse of the World Trade Center's north and south buildings.
Expansion of floor slabs and framing results in outward deflection of columns and potential overload.
From this expert opinion, the administration and media have aggressively promoted the pancake theory, which claims that the floor trusses expanded, which caused the columns to buckle, the joints to break, and the floors then compressed upon themselves. However, an objective observer would consider these important points. A. Never before has any steel frame building come down because of fire. The World Trade Center fires only burned for relatively short periods of time and at low heat levels. B. For the World Trade Center buildings to react in this way, literally thousands of super heavy-duty joints and welds would have to snap at precisely the same instant. Remember, these particular buildings were engineered for expansion and flexibility. There was also fire retardant sprayed on all of the steel, and the burning patterns were inconsistent throughout the floors. C. A pancake collapse could not come down with such speed. D. A pancake collapse would not have the latent energy to crystallize the building materials, to shred aluminum, or blast rubble to such distances. E. A pancake collapse would not create or maintain the astronomical heat patterns which were recorded and were monitored for weeks afterwards. Point 34. On September the 16th, 5 days after the attack, NASA flew a plane over the site to take measurements and to create a thermal surface map. In this period of time, hundreds of truckloads of debris had already been carried off, and firemen had sprayed millions of gallons of water on the smoking rubble. The results show that there were several hot spots with temperatures over 1,000 Fahrenheit on the surface, with one spot at the South Tower that recorded 1,377 degrees. Most of us noticed that the area continued to smoke for weeks. Since neither tons of jet fuel nor a compression demolition have the potential to create this type of heat, much less maintaining this heat for days afterwards, an impartial detective would have to conclude that there was another source for these extreme temperatures. Christopher Bolin of the American Free Press has also discovered that the steel columns at the base of the foundations, 70 feet underground, were melted. That would indicate that temperatures would have had to exceed 2,700 degrees. Hello? Is anybody in the predominant media, government, or law enforcement listening? Point 35. World Trade Center Building 6 is an important part of the puzzle. Shortly after World Trade Center Building 2 was hit, there was a huge explosion that appears to emanate from the center section of World Trade Center Building 6. Only later did the building catch on fire. It then burned